One of the more shocking developments of content creation and viewer habits in the last few years is the absolute explosion of the YouTuber Caleb Hammer, who has single-handedly transformed the finance market. As somebody who has pioneered a lot of the exploration into personal finances, budgeting, investing, who's done a lot to try and help other people. Some people call it a grift, and people are very critical of his over-the-top and inflammatory reactions. And while I have some issues with Caleb Hammer, in general I think he's a net positive, as he exposes a lot of these pitfalls, exposes a lot of these traps, and very much shows how easy it is to fall down the rabbit hole of financial abuse. And of course, because he demands one important thing, he draws a lot of ire from Post-Modernists especially, and a few other people, but mostly it's a Post-Modernist issue. Caleb Hammer draws anger because he demands two things. One of them is personal responsibility, and the other one is accountability. And those are two things that are denied by postmodernism. And it's led to a lot of people getting very mad at Caleb Hammer in a way that is bizarrely anti-feminist. If you look at feminist rhetoric, it's the way that they go about handling Caleb Hammer is quite phenomenal. It's quite fascinating because it ultimately demands the denial of personal responsibility and autonomy. It completely eliminates all initiative, all personal growth, all personal strength, all personal anything from these people. It is the ultimate tabula rasa idea that I've ever seen put on paper. Now, for those who don't know, tabula rasa is the blank slate. Basically means that all people are equal, all differences are taught, learned, or imposed upon somebody, as opposed to being just natural differences. And of course, Caleb Hammer is not perfect. I do have some criticisms of him myself, in that he usually goes after more deranged people, so we very rarely get to see a normal person. I would love to see more people who had one bad day that they just couldn't recover from, than have people who are just like, oh my god, you spent $50 million in OnlyFans. Well, that's fun every once in a while. I'd like to see more of the realistic side as well. But there are a lot of other content creators who are very jealous of Caleb Hammer's immense success, coming out here and calling him things like the most exploitative content creator, calling him things like a sexist, misogynist, attaching political labels to Caleb where Caleb doesn't have any, because he's an explicitly apolitical person. Sure, he has his thoughts on politics, but he doesn't put it into his show. When he talks politics, he's just talking facts. But what inspired me to do this video is I saw a video on Instagram that was somebody throwing a fit about Caleb Hammer. Looking at the comments, it's a bit of an old video, looks like it's from June 5th, but it's still worth going after anyway, because it really exposes this baffling dichotomy within the postmodernist mind. And I don't know if this content creator is a postmodernist. Let me say that real quick. I don't know who this content creator is. This is the only video of his I've seen. But before we go any further, like, subscribe, and let's get into this. And for those Eagle Eye viewers, I did get a brand new console. It's an SNES. I got some games with it. It's pretty freaking cool. But the content creator is someone by the name of Thomas R. Pearson. Never heard of them. Don't send them hate.
He's hands down one of the most exploitative creators online right now. His show isn't about finance, it's not about education, it is a freak show.
While that is true that the show isn't innately about finances or education, it's about entertainment, it also provides a lot of financial literacy, a lot of financial education, and he pairs it with resources to help push the education. For instance, and I'm a bit of a financial noob myself, I wasn't too familiar with high-yield savings accounts before I started watching Caleb Hammer Financial Audit, and now I'm actually, looking into them as a good way to store money while I work before going to grad school.
Telling somebody that's making $12 an hour to stop buying Starbucks in order to reduce their rent, that's not genius. It is laughably obvious.
If it is laughably obvious, then why are so many of the people on his show falling into these pit traps? A ton of the people on Financial Audit are making these purchases without realizing how badly they stack up. The point of the don't go and buy coffee every day thing isn't don't buy coffee, it's look at how small payments equal big payments in the long run. And Caleb Hammer isn't the person who tells you don't go and buy coffee. This just proves you've never watched the show, you don't know what he's on about. When Caleb Hammer gets to these people who are constantly buying energy drinks, constantly buying coffees, he doesn't tell them, don't buy coffee. He says, buy in bulk. Do the financially intelligent thing. A lot of the guests go on and they have crippling monster addictions. I do as well. I don't like this flavor. But a lot of them are obsessed with energy drinks, and so they're constantly buying them. They're stopping at gas stations every couple of minutes, and they're just getting an energy drink. Caleb Hammer's critique isn't stop buying energy drinks. No, Caleb Hammer's critique is go to the store and buy a bulk pack instead of going to the gas station and buying a single one so you're not getting upcharged out the wazoo for it.
And pretending that it's some kind of radical financial wisdom, that's even worse. Every episode,
he's not expressing it as some kind of radical financial wisdom. It's the kind of thing that everybody intuitively knows, but very few people are aware enough to practice it. A lot of people don't really know the impact of buying these small things throughout time is having on their finances. And sometimes you just need someone to point out, hey, look at the small purchases and see how they stack up.
Follows the same arc. Bring on a struggling guest, overspending, bad credit, bad habits, and then act shocked. Cue the yelling, the outrage, the gasps, and the jabs at the low-hanging fruit. Then he'll hit them with the same recycled one-size-fits-all advice.
Well, no, okay, he doesn't hit them with one-size-fit-all. And yes, he usually goes after people who are struggling. Wait, actually, hold up, I just remembered something. Caleb Hammer doesn't pick his guests. Caleb Hammer has, for a very long time, not picked the guests on his shows. Caleb Hammer has a team whose job is to decide who comes on the show. People willingly submit a request to go to the show, or somebody submit a request on their behalf. And then the person is talked to by Caleb's team if they get chosen. They have to go through a lot of screening processes to make sure that they're not trying to grift, to make sure that they're not lying about things. They go through screenings, and then they're given a lot of educational tools. They're given a guide of how Caleb is going to act, how Caleb is going to yell at them, to make them aware of the more violent rhetoric, to make them more aware of the more aggressive stuff Caleb's going to do. So they're fully aware, they're fully consenting to all of it. You are completely denying these people the agency and the choice that they use to go on.
Endless. Wow. Revolutionary. The guest usually makes a middling income, if that.
And that's also just blatantly untrue. Caleb Hammer's advice isn't just spend less, it's spend smart. And he also helps guide people which debts to target first. When they have somebody with a lot of debt and you watch the budgeting section, the first thing he does is he figures out how much they have in total, where they might need to cut back or might not need to cut back, and then which loans they need to target first. Caleb Hammer is a big proponent of the snowball method, which is where you eliminate lowest budget first so that you get that immediate gratification of removing loans on the smaller level, and then you go and you build up until you're limiting the big ones by moving that minimum payment to the next payment to speed that one up faster. And it's a really strong strategy for paying off the loans. And he makes it very clear. He guides them on the best way to pay through the loans to maximize speedy repayment in a way that doesn't ruin their lives. Because if you notice, Caleb Hammer also allocates 30% of the budget towards fun compared to most others who advocate for about 10 to 15%. You don't watch the show and yet you're insulting him because of your impression from the clips.
Usually have some personality.
Also, let me be clear, he doesn't target people with just low incomes. A lot of people he gets either have perfectly fine incomes, but a lot of people that he gets have household incomes for one person. So if the normal income for a two-person household, a lot of his people have that for just one person working. So a lot of people on the show are doing better than middling, doing better than the average person, and they're still in these struggles. He frequently gets on guests who are making a lot of money, and he's helping them through that. He explicitly doesn't want anybody who's unemployed on the show, though sometimes they make it on, and he helps work with them as well.
Problems, they're usually overspending, sometimes recklessly, sometimes just to survive. Caleb.
There has been no people on the show so far that I have seen who are overspending just to survive. And I'm not saying there hasn't been any, but the odds of that are incredibly small. And most likely, a lot of these people, and what has been happening on Financial Audit, is the people are overspending by going to the wrong store. Though they're saying that I have to go to Whole Foods to buy all my food. You know, the premium organic store that upcharges out the ass. When instead they could be going to H1B, Kroger, Meijer, Market Basket, Lion, Food Lion, all these other grocery stores that are significantly cheaper. Or they could be getting a Costco membership and going to Costco. Or they could be going to Sam's Club. Or they could be doing all these other things that will save them a lot of money in the long run. They're not going into debt to feed their family. If they are, it's because they're going to the wrong stores because it's something that they want to do.
Flips out, throws jabs at the guests because, haha, these people are dumb. Then comes some big reveal about why things are this way, cue another meltdown, and then he demands to slash every single part of their life. And if they...
Okay, usually there isn't some major incident that made everything this way. It's a lot of small bad behaviors stacking up. Usually it's a lot of, I was dumb in high school, so I took a lot of credit cards, I made this one impulse trip. And that can be a small thing, or it would be a lot of things all at once. And Caleb doesn't always crash out. He usually freaks out at how big the numbers are. He's freaking out at the numbers, but not at the person. And remember, you have to sign a waiver to go on the show that says you consent to being yelled at. You consent to being insulted. You consent to every single thing Caleb Hammer says. And if there's something he says that you don't like, you can give him the consent to remove it. He offers you the chance to say what you want removed, what you want bleeped out. Have you actually watched the show? Because everything you've levied so far is egregiously wrong. And also, this next part, if they resist the cutback on everything. First of all, Caleb Hammer doesn't always advocate for cutback on everything. Like I said earlier, Caleb Hammer has a very strict, higher budget for fun that he allocates than other people. He's saying cut back where you need to, not cut back on every single thing, and maybe sometimes you need to cut back on everything for a little while. Cut back on the fun spending for 6 months. You can knock out one really expensive loan, and then once you have that really expensive loan paid off, you can then increase your fun budget back up a little bit.
They resist, no nuance, very little empathy, and no real solutions.
No nuance if you resist. What he's saying, first of all, Caleb Hammer makes it very clear that what he's given is a very rudimentary budget, not a full-on solution, and they'll work on something a bit more substantial later on. And what do you mean, no real solutions? Frequently, he's giving people these classes to help them learn more skills that can hopefully help them bolster their resume. He's encouraging people to find new jobs, to cut off enablers. Well, not cut them off, but cut off the enabling part. He's empowering people to do things that they have to do to move on and break out of the financial cycle they're stuck in.
This is just public shaming disguised as mentorship. It's rage bait content packaged as self-help. And here's the worst part. Because the humiliation doesn't stop when the video ends, the real bullying is in the comments.
Caleb Hammer explicitly states and orders all viewers to stay out of the comment section. This is a common comment made on Financial Audit, where he says, don't go to the comment section. In every single one of the follow-ups, he makes it very clear that he tells the viewers, do not go to the comment section. Do not look at the comments. Do not review the comments. Do not react to the comments. He specifically tells people not to go there. And then he also explicitly insults, denigrates, and detracts those who are sending insulting comments. He explicitly makes it clear he does not endorse negative comments. It is the nature of being a YouTube show. He can't shut off the comments because that would kill a lot of the interaction, a lot of the positive stuff that he gets in the comments. He doesn't delete them because that's a stupid thing to do, and people who delete comments realistically don't deserve a channel. This comment section post is completely ignoring all of the stuff based in the actual show, and more importantly, once again, removes any kind of agency from the person on the video. It denies the agency of the person to avoid looking. Yes, the comments are out there, but you don't have to go and look at them. You don't have to go to and I know, it's human nature to go and look, but when you open that Pandora's box, it is on you, not on Caleb Hammer, not on Caleb's audience.
Section. Thousands of people piling on, mocking these guests, sometimes with a nice sprinkle of racially tinged insults, depending on who's on screen. And then you've got the terminally online freaks who track down the guests.
The little bit of sneak in of complaining about the racially insensitive comments, which Caleb Hammer does not endorse, by the way, and of course is nature. When you're on YouTube, when you're online, when you have become a loosely, publicly exposed figure, you draw ire, you draw insults, and you draw comments. And then talking about the people who track down the guests on social media, that's also not Caleb Hammer's doing. Caleb Hammer gives the guests fake names. He gives them names that are not real, that he blocks the usage of real names. Now, I think he used to use real names back like 2-3 years ago, but now he makes it so that everybody has a fake name that is not their real one to prevent them from being exposed, doxxed, and tracked down.
On social media outside of YouTube, all because they didn't live up to some guy's spreadsheet and quick thinking remarks. And if we're being honest, I imagine that a lot of people watching, feeling superior, sneering and laughing, are in the exact same situations themselves. The economy is...
And that's why they're watching Financial Audit, is because they want to get better. A lot of people watching the show either started watching the show for the funny clips or started watching for the advice. A lot of people stuck around for the advice because there is some legitimately helpful advice in Financial Audit. It has legitimately inspired viewers to start budgeting, to start investing, to start looking at alternate revenues of ways to protect their money, to protect themselves in case of a catastrophe. It has inspired a lot of people to set up their own safety nets and their own emergency funds because, as Caleb Hammer says, not having an emergency fund is an emergency. All of these things you are saying is demonstrably false and quickly proven wrong just by watching Financial Audit.
Globally wrecked. Everyone is suffering from wages that don't stretch, rents that keep rising, and the debt that just never stops. They're pointing and laughing, not because...
And then they're taking it now, and this guy is saying that the real problem isn't these people's behavior. It isn't the fact that they use money properly. It isn't the fact that they aren't taking responsibility, they aren't taking accountability, and they lack any kind of agency. No, what he's saying is that it's actually just the economy's fault, and it's just the world's fault. Tabula rasa, once again, these people are only suffering because the world is designed to make them suffer. No accountability whatsoever. The denial of all agency and all personal action and activity. This is completely asinine, completely removing any kind of personal impact, personal influence on their financials and financial well-being. He complains about rage bait, but this video has to be rage bait, right?
Because they're better, but because they're probably projecting. Because it's easier to mock someone else's struggle than to face your own. And honestly, I have no idea how this really flies under YouTube's guide.
There's of course sorry for that pause face. There's of course another thing here. People, especially those who are postmodernists and cannot extract thought towards others, will accuse another person of projecting because that's what they do. So this person sees anyone making fun of the guest on Financial Audit as projecting their own financial insecurities. Which what that tells me is this YouTuber, Thomas R. Pearson, is the kind of person who is projecting his own insecurities onto other people on the daily basis. And because he does that, it must be that everyone else also does that. This also doesn't break YouTube's guidelines because, well, it's not breaking YouTube's guidelines. There's nothing in it that says you can't do any of this. The over-the-top comments will get removed or hidden by YouTube automatically, and Caleb Hammer is having people consent to this. He's not doxing people, he's not exposing them without their consent, he's not filming them or posting them without their consent. He gets consent from them before he creates any of these episodes. It's not against YouTube's guidelines, because the people in the video have the agency to decide that they want to be in the video.
If someone ran a show parading vulnerable people to millions just to ridicule them, we'd call it what it is. But somehow broadcast...
Yeah, we'd call it entertaining. We'd call that entertainment. And we'd acknowledge the fact that the people chose to be on the show, chose to show off their vulnerabilities, chose to show off their mistakes. That's all it is. It's entertainment where people choose to do it. Newsflash, buddy, we've been doing this for years. That's what reality TV is. That's all reality TV is. What about the earlier seasons of America's Got Talent, where the dumbest and most ridiculous people will come onto the show and just do the worst performance in the world for the sole purpose of being mocked because they chose to do it. People who put themselves on YouTube willingly, people who go to YouTube shows willingly are begging, legitimately asking to be mocked, to be made fun of, to be belittled. They choose to have this put onto them. And here you are just denying them the agency of that because you don't like what's being said.
That to millions, have a semi-calm demeanor, and somehow we call it help. I'm getting tired of people in better situations yelling at broke people and calling it wisdom. We don't need more people screaming stop buying takeaway at part-time workers. We need real conversations about the systems we're put in that link to this.
Guess what, pal? Telling part-time workers to not buy takeout or takeaway, I don't know what you guys call it, that's terrible. Telling them not to buy takeout is helping them with the solution. Because so many people rely so heavily on takeout or takeaway, we're no longer encouraging making your own food, learning how to cook. And notice he said part-time workers. So people who are working sub 40 hours a week can't make their own meals, can't prep a sandwich. It's really easy to make a sandwich. It's really easy to cook burgers. And I don't cook. And I can make a burger. I don't cook, and I can throw a canned soup on the stove. I can throw a box of mac and cheese, and now I've got 2 meals of mac and cheese for me whenever I need it. You're denigrating part-time workers not being able to sustain themselves on cheaper food. Takeout food is at least 2 to 3 times as expensive as home cooking, even if you are cooking the pre-made stuff. So yes, that is the core problem, is that these people are spending money they do not have. When Caleb Hammer is explicitly laying out how they can have basically the same amount of time, have the same amount of freedom, the same amount of resources, and yet walk away with more money, that is a solution. Maybe the problem is that the systems are put in place to punish those who are bad with their money. And so the cure to the systems who punish those who are bad with their money is to teach them how to be better with their money.
Now, the systems, the gaps, the traps, and not just the surface level cuts. Because the problem isn't just buying Starbucks, and the solution sure as hell isn't public humiliation.
Alright. Yes, the solution isn't public humiliation, but that's also not the solution being offered now, is it? No. The solution is follow a budget, do what you gotta do, and be smart with your money. That's the solution, that's the obvious thing, and that's what Caleb Hammer is doing. He's teaching them how to budget, and explicitly what Caleb Hammer tells you to do is to budget later. And yes, cutting out Starbucks will go a long way for a lot of people. I mean, if we're going with just the most basic numbers, the average Starbucks drink is about $4. So let's say you're somebody who buys 3 Starbucks drinks a week. $4, 3 days a week. That's $12 a week spent. In a year, $624 spent on Starbucks drinks, when you could be making coffee at home for $1 a piece. Or less than that, depending on what systems you're using. And sure, maybe you only cut that down to $300 a year as opposed to $600. That's still an additional $300 you can put in savings, you can invest, you can put into paying off debt. And that's what Caleb Hammer is saying. He's not saying eliminate this thing from your budget. He's saying be more tactical. And he's not saying don't buy Starbucks. He's saying don't buy Starbucks when you can't afford to buy Starbucks. Caleb Hammer's explicit thing isn't that you should never do this thing, it's you should not do this thing when you cannot afford this thing. I mean, the financial audit from today, the one about $92,000 a year on League of Legends, which is a misleading thing because it has nothing to do with the show, because the guy isn't in debt because of that. When you look at a lot of the things he's criticizing them for is buying a Switch Lite, buying a Steam Deck, buying 2 computers, buying PlayStations when they don't have the money to afford it. And in this financial audit, he says, I have nothing wrong with you buying the technology if you have the money to do it. What Caleb Hammer has the issue with is them financing this technology when they already have a lot of debt. This video was a load of bogus. It was a load of shaming people yourself. Because you are shaming them. You are denying them any kind of agency. And most importantly, this kind of video is harmful and it's dangerous because it tells you that you don't have to change. You don't have to be the one to make the changes because it's society that makes you poor. So you might as well take out all of the debt and then pass it on to your kids and make your kids suffer when they try to take care of you. And you pass on that poor financial literacy to your children. What this is pulling up the ladder behind you. It's preventing future generations, and preventing others from having financial literacy themselves because you're saying that it's all because of society. Well, guess what? Even if society is to blame, who does that help? Who does it help to blame it wholesale on society? Who does that benefit in any way, shape, or form? It benefits nobody, and it explicitly punishes those who are trying to improve. And I'm sorry, but that is objectively the case we're looking at. What you are calling for is the harm against people who need help. But that's pretty much all I've got. This is the definition of postmodernism. It's the definition of enforcing tabula rasa onto other people, despite it being demonstrably untrue. This is the definition of the leftist mindset that everything is done to you and you have no influence, while also demanding that you have agency as well. But yeah, this is what I've got. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this, and I will see you guys on the next one.